Hey guys, welcome to Sopi Studio Umbiamas, conectando Aruba com o mundo via vídeo podcasting. Conectar conosco, compartilhar ideias e histórias para nos inspirar e para nos abrir. Sopi Studio é a plataforma de podcast na Aruba. Follow-nos no Facebook, subscribe no YouTube ou na plataforma de podcast preferida. Escute o podcast preferido que hora e onde está. Sopi Studio, powered by Subway. Passa na Subway para o sop, salada, wrap ou flatbread e mais fresco. Cucheta localidade Ronde Aruba. Nós está cerca de Ibo. Subway. Swing Masters. Organizando events, conferences ou weddings. Mister de luz, sound, staging, DJ, trussing ou flatscreen. Swing Masters está klaar para ser boa fiesta éxito. Swing Masters.
Hi, welcome to Sincerely Carolina. Thank you so much for tuning in. Are you excited? Are you ready to get motivated, educated, and hopefully have some changes in your daily life? Well, you are at the right place. I am Carolina. I will be your host of this podcast. And this podcast is available thanks to our amazing sponsors:
Lindy Boutique, Proframe, Always, Gelatissimo, Paper Sisters, and Aveeno.
Thank you so much. Hi, welcome to Sincerely Carolina. My name's Carolina. I'm your host for tonight, and we have a very interesting topic. And I started off in English because we will have maybe like a little papiamento in between, but because we have a guest from the Netherlands, we will be focusing on English, okay? Because I know not all of you love Dutch. And also, hopefully, this podcast can reach a bigger audience as well. So that's cool. Before I continue, I hope you had a nice weekend. I hope that you didn't get a fine and all that stuff, because I saw a bunch of stuff in the news. We went trick-or-treating with the dogs. It was really nice. And then we were at home on time. So I hope it was fun and safe. Before I continue, I want to thank my sponsors. Thank you so much for believing in educating our public. I love you so much. So obviously, thank you to Lindy Boutique, Always, Proframe, Aveeno, Gelatissimo, Paper Sisters. I think that's it. Yes. And of course, to Sopi Studios and our sponsors that make this possible. So before I continue, I want to let you guys get to know our awesome guest of today. So I will start with, I don't know, who wants to go first? Kristel?
Yeah, I don't mind. Thank you for giving us the opportunity for being here.
Yes.
My name is, it's a very interesting topic, and there's a lot to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Kristel van Nes. I work at FEPO, which is a foundation in Aruba for the hard of hearing and deaf persons. And my role at FEPO is I'm the office manager, and I am a speech language pathologist as well. So I work during therapies with our hard of hearing and deaf children and adults.
Awesome.
Yes.
Right? So that was Kristel. All right, we'll continue. Dr. Robert, can I call you Dr. Robert?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
You like.
Awesome.
I'm Robert Stokroos. I'm from the Netherlands, so I'm the reason that it's in English. I'm very sorry for that, but my papiamento still is not that fluent, so I'm trying.
Good.
I'm a professor of otolaryngology in Utrecht.
Awesome. And
okay.
our local doctor, Dr. Cabenda, Dr. Steve.
Steve, yeah. Well, thank you very much, Carolina.
Yes.
That we can be here. It's very
I'm
exciting.
happy you're here.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting. It's the first time I do this. My name is Steve Cabenda. I'm otorhinolaryngologist ENT specialist here on the island.
Mm-hmm.
I've already been here for, I think, almost 32 years, so quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And we started 10 years ago with the cochlear implants for the deaf people. And I think we want to speak about it.
Yes. So as you heard, we have a multidisciplinary but also multinational team here. So cochlear implants. I think we should start there first, right? And maybe before we go there, we heard some words. We heard deaf. We heard hard of hearing. Kristel, can you explain a little bit, who are your clients at FEPO? So you explained that a little bit, but what is the difference between being deaf, right? Being born deaf versus being born hard of hearing, and then who eventually gets the opportunity to get a cochlear implant, or is, what should I say, meets the requirements?
Yes.
Explain us a little bit about
there
that.
are requirements, and you may. I'm starting to explain. If there's something that you want
Of course.
to, just let me know. But you have the two groups instead. You have the hard of hearing people, and they are either born hard of hearing, or along the way they became hard of hearing. You have children that were born like that, or they became due to various reasons, as well as the adults. These are the people that they don't need cochlear implants.
Okay.
They just need the amplification from a regular hearing aid, which can, a hearing loss can be mild to severe, but not at the point that you will need a cochlear implant, which is especially for the deaf persons. So they have hearing loss, but they still need some amplification to be able to hear sounds and speech. Now, when you have a deaf person, like a child that is born deaf, or an adult that is born deaf or became deaf along the way, for these people, hearing aids do not provide enough amplification anymore. So they need more. They need something else. And for these people, we have cochlear implants. So cochlear implants, correct me if I'm wrong, then you will need a loss of a minimum of 70 to 75 decibels on both ears for you to be able to even think about the process of getting a cochlear implant. And
Can you maybe like give an example of what that would be like? And it's okay if you don't, but I just want to try to like...
Okay. Just so you have an idea, like 80, 85 decibels is the sound that a vacuum cleaner makes.
Interesting.
So at the moment that you as a deaf person, maybe you can hear a vacuum cleaner just a little bit, or you don't hear it at all, then you are considered someone that is practically very severely hard of hearing / deaf.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
I'm
Thank you.
telling it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great example.
Very good.
We all have these things, right?
Yes,
we all
and I
know
mean,
that.
it's important that and I will do this. I will ask you to give, examples, real life examples, because sometimes we can get technical and,
Yes, no, I understand.
laymen need to understand as well. But I think that's a very nice way of putting it. Thank you for the vacuum one.
You're welcome.
I will remember that. Yes, so a cochlear implant. So then people have to meet this requirement, and then they're allowed to get it. So what does a cochlear implant do? Right? I mean, maybe some of us have seen them on people, right? Or on TV or whatever. We have some here too, so maybe we can show them in a little bit. But explain to us how it works and what it does, that all of a sudden people can hear.
You can open this up.
Yeah, I can open the box.
Yeah.
It's a device which looks like a hearing aid. This is one.
Okay.
But it is not a hearing aid, because a hearing aid amplifies the sound, but it can't amplify enough. That's why you can't hear the hearing aid if you can't hear your vacuum cleaner.
Okay.
So that's why this was devised. And it encodes the sound in certain parts of the frequency, so in certain tonal heights. Translates to a little device which is in this box.
Okay.
Let me see if I can open it
maybe
up for you.
can try.
I have nails.
I was going to say, somebody with nails.
Yes. Here you are.
Right. And this is the part that's implanted. So,
Okay.
This guy makes like a computer signal out of the sound, translated to the implanted part, and this tiny little wire here is implanted into the cochlea. In the cochlea, you know that's where the nerve ends. So that's where the nerve ends are of the auditory nerve, and that's stimulated directly. So it works completely different from a hearing aid. And people who are that deaf, usually they have a functioning auditory nerve. So that's why we stimulated that.
Okay. And I imagine that there are tests to make sure that a person's nerves work.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay,
But with babies, it's difficult
Okay.
to see. But we started to do babies from 1 month. We were doing the testing. So when they are born, they have to go to the Wit Gele Kruis.
Yes. Yeah.
And there they do testing. And when they fail 3 times,
Okay.
they're being sent to the ENT specialist.
Okay. To check
That's
why they may not
what
be.
is going on
Okay.
and why. And when we find out that they are really deaf, is they are born deaf, both sides, that's when we get concerned and we are starting to get them in the program and speaking. We have a team. We discuss it in our team. And as soon as possible, we would try to put a cochlear implant in those. And then you have the older people. They start with hearing aids, and it goes good. But as they age, the hearing goes backwards, and there will be a time when the hearing aid is not working anymore.
Okay.
And before, that was it. And you said, okay, well, hearing is not working, so you have to say like this. But now we have the cochlear implants, so they can get cochlear implants, and then they can, if everything goes good after training, they can enjoy life again by having better communication with people instead of with the hearing aids where they have no communication.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and the training part takes place at FEPO. So I train these people, kids and adults, because Robert and Steve were explaining, this is not a hearing aid. So it's a completely different way of hearing. If you hear patients talking, like the children, they don't know what it sounds like.
Yeah, I was going to
because
say that.
That's their only reference point. When you're born deaf, you have no idea what natural sound sounds like. So it's the only sound you know. But the adult clients, they have different ways of explaining how it sounds for the adults. Because we have to keep in mind that an adult know what he has a reference point. He heard it in the past, and the brain, the way it works, it adapts to that sound. It's not necessarily how a child would hear the same sound, because that is what the brain worked with in the first place. But the adults are saying that sometimes it's like a radio, like the sound of a radio, a little bit mistuned, if you can say it like that.
Like with the static sound a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of them say that maybe it's a little robotic. Some of them have no problem at all. It sounds natural. So you can see that for every adult, because it's an electrically stimulated sound, they perceive the sound differently. And well, my job is then they receive their cochlear implants. A child needs to build up his or her language development from scratch with a cochlear implant, a way that is not natural, you can say, to hear. And an adult needs to learn how to listen again with this new device.
Okay.
So they will need to connect the old sounds that they knew, sometimes 10, 20 years ago, if they have like a really severe and a long way, to the new sounds. And so that's why they receive therapy at our place.
Okay. So what is the average age, right? So, okay, so we have a program, and we're going to talk about the program on the islands, because I think it's very interesting. But what is the average age when we're talking about babies, right? When you discover it from babies. And I'm assuming that the adult varies because it has to do with like how it regresses. But for children, what is the average age for an implant? Cochlear implant.
Well, Robert probably knows about
we
it.
try to do it as soon as possible.
Okay.
Because these kids, they use the hearing to develop speech. And every month you wait, you have a delay in speech. And speech is very important. That's what we are doing now. So this delay is not made up for later in life. So we try to aim at about between 1 and 2 years here on the island. It's really, really good. When we started the program 10 years ago, there were, of course, a number of deaf children who didn't have access to this care. So they were implanted later, and then performance is better, but is worse relatively because they were implanted later. But they're also happy with the results they can achieve. But you shouldn't expect that much. So, but if you're between 1 and 2 years, the results can be really good.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the program, and then we're going to go on, yes, but tell us about the program.
The program.
Yes,
like
tell us about the program.
Because which part of the program?
Well,
are you
I mean,
talking about?
it's, and it's, of course, if you don't have to do with this problem, this issue, whatever you want to call it, right? You don't really know how it works and why it happens, when it happens, etc. So I studied in the US, and cochlear implants are not a thing for like kids of 1 to 2 years old. Like unless you have like a lot of money, you can afford it, or really good insurance. Like it's not given like how it is here for the past 10 years, as I'm understanding. So, if you have been following me for a while, we have had a conversation about deaf culture and how everything is like shifting a little bit. But it was very shocking for people from abroad, from the US, which is also a developed country, but, who does not consider healthcare right. But, that whole argument, we don't have to get into it. But the point is that it was very shocking to them to know that we have such a program and that it's not based on people's finances or income. So I do want to talk about that program because it is amazing that such a small island, which is mostly considered developing country, does have this program in place for any parent who wants the children to have it. So I do think that we should know more of it, even if you don't have kids right yet, or you don't have somebody in your family who's deaf. I do think that it's important that we know.
Yeah, well, when we started, it was not in the insurance packet, as you say. Yeah? So we had to go and speak to the insurance company, and that's what we did. We spoke to them, and they wanted to know, okay, but how much is it going to cost us? Now, we knew approximately how many deaf people we had
At that time.
We know how many deaf babies are being born, 1 in 1,000.
Okay.
And we have 1,000 children being born, newborns a year, so maybe 1 or 2, sometimes is none. So we spoke with them, okay, it's going to be 1 or 2 babies, and let's start with 2 adults. So they listened to that, and that's where we started.
Okay.
And if I may remark, because
yes, of course.
In Europe, this is a little bit different than the States.
Yes.
I think accessibility is better.
Yes.
So then it's no doubt. But then a lot of research went into the costs. And if you consider cost of healthcare, whatever type of healthcare you have, you have $1. And where can you spend your dollar?
The best way.
What adds the most to a life of a person? And then cochlear implants are very, very high, if not the highest on the list. Because communication is what everybody does. If you, all day. So if you can go to school, if you're able to communicate with the people around you, that depends on where you come, how you develop emotionally, which social possibilities you have, how you can make friends, how you can work. So the dollar spent on a CI is spending-wise a no-brainer compared to a lot of other stuff that's going in healthcare. And the alternative for people was to go to the Netherlands for a longer period, because this rehabilitation that Kristel does here on the island is very, very important for the outcome. So the best way of organizing this is doing it as close as possible to where people actually live. And these 2 arguments were more or less convincing, and made it possible, I think.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I mean, and it sounds right, like a good argument. But yes, we all know that although we do have a social health insurance system that's really great, not everything is included, and as we go, we kind of find out loopholes that we want to add, right?
Yes.
So I'm happy to hear
Yes, and
this was done.
there was even like a very important change along the way, because when we started out with the cochlear implantation program, children only would receive 1 cochlear implant.
Okay.
And I think at that time in the Netherlands, they already went to the idea of 2 cochlear implants, so a bilateral implantation, because this has a very positive effect on language development in children.
Okay.
So after a couple of years, it was, Steve, we went to the health insurance company and tried to explain to them the importance of having in children not 1 cochlear implant, but 2 cochlear implants, and they agreed to it.
Okay.
So right now they receive on both sides, and it really has a positive effect on speech. The situation is not yet ideal. There there are still services that are not in place for these children. There are still a lot of lacking, but I think that the basics that we need are in place to be able to help these children.
Okay.
We started around 10 years ago, I think, approximately. And so I think we implanted around 40 people, which inclusive children. So we have some experience now. We also implant the children and the adults from Curaçao, and we also do from Bonaire. And they come frequently to us, and the speech therapists there, they are also being educated, also through Kristel, so that we have one way of teaching and helping these people.
Awesome. So, that was one of the questions that I got today. People wanted to know what is covered and what isn't, right? And you just mentioned that there are some services that are not provided. Are they not provided because we just don't have the professionals in Aruba, or?
Yeah, how long do we have?
We have an hour. I mean,
can talk
not anymore,
about
but yes. But tell me what the basics are that we have and what do we still need, right?
Yes, so what we don't have, and I know that you're working very hard on that at the moment, so you know exactly what I'm going to say. So we are still lacking the part of early intervention for these children. And it is so that not only the deaf children, but also the hard of hearing children, they are born, and when they're diagnosed with this hearing problem, then there is no service available that is a paid service, so that parents don't need to pay for it. So a hard of hearing child needs to pay for speech therapy. A deaf child, the parents need to pay for speech therapy until the moment that he is implanted.
Okay.
But before implantation, this service is not covered for.
So after implantation it is, because it's part of
it's part of
the rehabilitation program.
Process.
Okay.
But before it isn't. And like Robert was telling, it can be between 1 and 2 years that this child is implanted, which is fairly good. But the early intervention part that comes before, where you need to give parents coaching when they need the social emotional support in how to deal with a deaf, hard of hearing or deaf child, how to communicate through sign language and communicate in general with a child that maybe does not respond back the way that you would want the child to respond back. You have like the school services, but I know that you're working very hard on that part as well. So that I would say the early intervention part, that is the biggest part that at this moment is lacking. And for our children, it means that they start with a delay in life.
Yes.
A communication
not just
delay.
about speech, but other forms of connection and everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned something, yes, I absolutely am a huge advocate for early intervention. And this is something that we talked about it too, right? It's how parents perceive the news as well, how they go about it. So, and that's very cultural, right? In our culture, it's heavier, let's put it that way, where parents feel a sense of disappointment, grief, and sadness with this news. And I have said this before in either my podcast or the Stigma Autista podcast, but we talked about being prepared to become a parent isn't being prepared to become a parent of a regular child. It's being prepared to fight whatever fight you need to fight for that child. And I think that what you said, sometimes people go into parenthood like that, being aware that I'm going to do whatever it takes, and then I don't have support. And then you have the other spectrum of people who did not go into this prepared in any way, emotionally, right, or psychologically, and then they are facing a, higher challenge than, regular children already are, and then they don't get the support. And what you said, at that point, it's not even about, the basic communication, but just affection in general, the feeling of resentment that children are starting to feel because parents start to reject them. So when we talk about early intervention, like Kristel said, it's not just about, getting this child to the maximal potential. Of course, it's just about that, but it's also about the non-tangible things, the things that we can't really measure at an early age, but that we tend to see at a much larger, older age. So we were hoping to have somebody who was born deaf and has a cochlear implant, but he couldn't make it because he's training for college football. Hi, Rodney. But yes, and he really gave us a bunch of humbling moments last year when we talked to him. And I think that one of them was that when he got his implant, and he got his implant at a very young age compared to other kids in the US, he got it at like 2.5. And he was saying that, after that, he learned to talk. He went to a regular school, and he was the odd kid, right? Because you have the implants, and his speech, although was very great, you could still hear like an accent, and he called it the deaf accent. And at some point, his family wasn't using sign language anymore, and it was like, okay, Rodney was fixed, and that's it. And they just kind of like let it go. And then one day he just took it off, and I think he said he flushed his, oh my gosh. And his parents were really mad because I'm sure you guys know they're very expensive.
Very, very expensive.
Yes. But he was so mad because he was like, I'm not fixed, I'm not all of a sudden like not deaf. I'm still deaf. And I'm so happy that I'm privileged enough to have this aid, but it's this feeling that your support system does not even understand it well enough to support you through that process. And I think that when we talk about early intervention and support in general, it's so important because, and we talk about this here in Aruba, that once kids get the implant, parents let go of sign language, period. They don't really talk about it anymore at home. It's like you're fixed and that's it. And obviously, as a community, we haven't felt the need to be more inclusive because of that. So that is something that I do want to talk about. I do want us to realize that something very interesting you said, that yes, it's an aid, but they still can't hear the way that regular hearing people can. So it's not like you fix deafness. It's the amazing thing that technology has provided us, right? Yes. That science has provided us. That is always
it keeps
evolving.
It keeps evolving.
Yes.
Because what would be the future of the?
Well, there are two things basically that are still not good, and that's probably why you mentioned it's very important. You're not fixed. You're able to communicate. You're able to learn.
Exactly.
But you're not able, for example, to enjoy music very well. It's not designed for that. This thing is too simple. Music is too complex.
Okay.
If there's a lot of environmental noise, even if you have 2 implants, that you're able to hear more. But if it's very noisy around you, it's very difficult. So there are still technical developments, a lot of technical developments in the last 10 years also, that enable a lot of people to enjoy it to a higher level, but we're not there yet.
No.
That makes it an interesting field.
Yes.
But comparing that to the question, would you then not do it? Now, of course, you should do it. The outcomes are very much better than when not doing it. Quality of life is much better. But there are still things lacking. And that's why it's important to mention that it's not a fix. It's not fixing someone. Nature, you can't fix nature. I think we all know that.
There is something also for the children, what is lacking in Aruba, and that's a social worker. Maatschappelijk werkster, they say in Dutch. And because most of these people, they have multiple problems at home. And you can give them an implant, but the children has to come. And if they have problems, the parents has problems, sometimes they don't come. So we cannot work with the children. So they need somebody to
a case manager
to help them. And usually there are multiple problems. It could be marital problems. Maybe they both are working. The income is very low. Maybe they have no transportation to bring there's so many things. And that is usually, for some of our kids,
one of the bigger issues.
Yeah.
And we do have to keep in mind that, Aruba's population, socioeconomically, we have a huge chunk of our population who is not health literate, right? Let me turn it around. A very small part of our population is health literate, period. And then you have people who are educated, right, in certain levels. And the education level on average in Aruba is very low. So that in itself already is a boundary. And you know, like you mentioned, somebody like a social worker. So that is something that our PETA group, right?
Yes.
So we have a pilot project that we're working on, and it's about early intervention in Aruba, where we have FEPO, we have Avi, we have Gelattissimo, and we have with Hoogleraar, anyways, a bunch of people, and it's awesome. But something that we talked about is that we don't have like a central point where children have like case management, somebody to follow up with the parents. Hi, you know, remember there's an appointment tomorrow. How's the child's progress growing? Is it going well or not? So it's, and we see this with not just this, but we see this with autism, for example. They get a diagnosis and then it's like, bye-bye, and you know,
good luck.
Yes. So that's very interesting to hear that although we have this amazing, you know, program that is also very costly, that took people to convince, right, our insurance to cover for it, then you also have the part where you have to put in your own
then you
work.
expect that you will need
Yes.
a good coverage with all that money that you're inverting in a child. And you know, I think that one thing that in Aruba that really that I really see on a daily basis is how children with a disability are seen upon. So there's a lot going on, and the word disability even is a taboo in Aruba. And you know, why is a disability a taboo? I think because there are no services available yet, or not enough, to get someone to his or her maximum potential. For example, when I look at myself, I have a disability because without my lenses or my glasses, I am not even able to work or drive a car or do anything productive. So what is the difference with a child that is being born hard of hearing or deaf? Look, I was met in my needs. I had glasses, lenses. They are met in their needs in the way that they get their cochlear implants and their hearing aids, but the additional services needed to get this person to a maximum potential is lacking in a way. And you know, I really think that, you know, a society, the way that a society sees or perceives disability is a direct consequence, let's say, of the way that needs are being met on the island. Because
Yes, it's a vicious loop.
yes,
right?
so if you have like a person with a disability that goes to the next level, that elevates to his or her maximum potential, and then we as a society, we're starting to expect more of this person because we see, okay, this is possible. This person can go to work. This person doesn't have to stay at home. This person can communicate. And even when you choose to not have a cochlear implant, they communicate in a different way. So start respecting that. And if we elevate our expectations, then workforce can start to implement adaptations for these persons. And then our perception of what a disability is will shift. So it's a long road that we have ahead of us, but it's a very important one. And I think that with the early intervention that you're working on, that we all are working on, that we can get just a little bit closer to that point.
Of course. And, you know, it's talking about it, right? So we're talking about it right now. And I didn't know that, you know, I would think, and that maybe it's my very, maybe a little bit of ignorant view, right? As a person who is generally interested in things, period, I would think that if I got this special whatever, right, thing, I would appreciate it and make use of it, whatever that means. But then, you know, I think it amazes me because I have a healthcare background that people do not appreciate the cochlear implants, right? Because I understand that they're very costly. Not all countries have the same accessibility that we do. But maybe we have to talk a little bit more about that, right? About telling parents that, you know, and not just parents, but people in general. Like if you know somebody who just got the news that their child, you know, was born deaf or something, or has, you know, it's very hard of hearing, tell them, we are so lucky that we live in Aruba where we have this program, but you really need to put in the work, right? You really need to be part of this. You really need to support your child, make sure that your family is involved, because that's another thing.
Yes.
We love going through these things alone. So if something happens in a family, it's like...
It's a taboo.
Oh, yes.
So I'm not going to share this with other people.
Exactly. So instead
there's
of...
also another point, and it is sometimes we tell parents, okay, your kid does not hear, we have tested it, but they don't accept.
Okay.
So that's another thing. So they disappear, and after a while they come back, and then they accept it. Then you lose some time.
Well, I see that on Facebook a lot.
Oh, on Facebook?
Yes, and I tag you or I tag whomever professional I think should give an answer. But I'll see on Vraag en Aanbod, so it's like it's like a Facebook marketplace, like a local one. And people will say stuff like, "Oh, my child is 3 years old," and
that's I've heard that. I've read that a lot on Vraag en Aanbod.
Too much.
But it's not even the reactions that you see on Facebook that boys start talking later, or no, he's 3, just wait it out, he will start talking. But sometimes it's even professionals in the field, it's even doctors.
Yes.
That parents come to me and they were telling me that but the doctor told me that, just wait it out. And we were like, but we as speech language pathologists, we are the professionals in the field of communication and language. If we have even a 1.5-year-old child or even a 1-year-old child that are not meeting certain milestones, maybe we will say to parents, you can try this and this and this, but if you are in doubt, always seek help from a professional. So that is really something that I want to highlight, that if you are in doubt, if your child is not talking yet or not enough, or you have like this feeling, sometimes parents cannot explain. It's like
a gut feeling.
I have this feeling that something is going on. And then, if someone tells them, no, you shouldn't worry, my child was 4 or 5 years old and now he's talking like really good, that doesn't mean that your child will be the same. And maybe your child needs services.
Exactly. And that's the thing that we have, which is nice. We have a sense of community, but to the point where it can be damaging to ourselves, right? So with some things we have a sense of community, and with other things we don't. But this is one thing where we would rather go to like a public forum and ask questions that could easily be answered
and
by professionals.
To suit yourself with the answers that you're receiving.
But then they get bombarded by like hundreds of answers, because I've seen these threads, and then I feel like, and I see a lot of people tagging professionals, but you see what you said, like these type of answers. So I'm just gonna go to the comments real quick, because I saw a couple and sometimes I forget to look at the comments. But yes, and I also want to remind you, I didn't say this at the beginning, I'm so sorry, but you should know by now. So we have giveaways. We have giveaways every week, to make sure you like and share the episode, and you have till Friday, okay?
Perfect.
Yes, you have till Friday. So Kristel, that means you can share later as well.
Okay, I will definitely.
Yes. But yes, I have
maybe
some
I'll
comments.
win something.
Yes, so we have some cute stuff from Paper Sisters. We have some cute stuff from Aveeno, and I think we still have a gift certificate from Lindy Boutique, so that's nice.
Nice.
Yes. Okay, so somebody, aka my husband, he said, let's make cochlear implants as cool as eyeglasses, right? Because we were talking about how glasses are now like, it's an accessory, right? People will say like, oh, I love your glasses. But I do have to say it wasn't like this growing up, because when I was in school, it was like, do I have to wear them? But now they are. So we can do this.
It's a fashion statement now.
Yes. So we can switch. So he said, maybe we should work a little bit harder on like hearing aids and cochlear implants and making them cool. Like it's an accessory. Oh, it's awesome. You can hear me better.
Yeah.
So maybe we should start complimenting
already,
people.
Because maybe you can tell us.
You can see that with nowadays with the phone, everybody's walking with the phone, and sometimes they have
the earpods and all this stuff. Yep.
So if you have something in your ear, or you have,
it shouldn't be that weird.
It shouldn't be that weird.
Exactly.
And it's I'm glad that Cabenda mentioned it, because Steve mentioned it, because at this moment you can even stream with your cochlear implant. You can and with your hearing aids, you can stream directly to your phone, and there's all these gadgets available, and and for the children, there are these really cute covers with, princesses and unicorns or pirates. And you see
Just for
that
children. If you're an adult and you have a cochlear implant and you want to wear princesses, please do.
you can wear unicorn. I think it's in all sizes, right?
It's in all sizes, yeah.
I mean, I thought it would, but
Because that one, if you see that one,
Yeah, that was a cute one.
The music theme.
That's a very cute one.
yes, I
This
was
is
looking
the-
at it. And I'm like, that
A
has.
really somber one.
Aww.
But the other one is...
But it's up to you. Like, if you have like a very like chill black look, then that's nice. But look at this one. It actually has like designs on it. But yes, so I want to encourage you this week or next week or this month or any day of the year, if you bump into somebody who has a hearing aid or a cochlear implant, compliment them on it, right? Tell them it's nice and you're happy for them.
And these children, they can do practically anything that every other child can do. Okay, because of a lack of services, we can progress more. But I have one particular story that I've heard that a teenager with a cochlear implant, and our teenagers are doing great.
Awesome.
They're doing really great in school. And you had one, but like you said, she had like the deaf accent. She went to order something at a fast food restaurant. And the person that was attending to her, she refused to speak to her. And she attended to her mother. Whereas this teenager, she can talk, she can speak. And she wasn't attended to. So these are the problems that still arises in our community. So people are thinking, oh, she is talking differently, so there must be something cognitively going on, which is not the case. So these are barriers that we need to break, that no, these children, they can communicate. And we as normal hearing people, we have to put in our effort to see from, look at Starbucks, look at how they did the inclusion with the sign language and everything. We can go there.
Yes.
We're a small community. It shouldn't be that difficult.
I was going to say that. We are a small community, so reaching everyone is actually easier.
Yes.
So I have a very interesting question. Hi, Denise. I'm happy to see you tuned in. And she's asking, oh, by the way, hi, maybes. I saw you say hi. I'm sorry. Buonanotte to you too. So, yes. So Denise is asking, when a cochlear implant is first implanted, what is the average time that it takes for a patient to get used to having an implant and thus like hearing again? What's the average?
Good. Children or adults?
Well, we can answer for both.
Okay. Now, adults usually 6 months with speech therapy. They would get far, but Kristel can say something about it. But children, they take a little longer because they have no speech developments. So they have to learn first speech, and then they can start to work on the
Communication.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
Yeah, you can imagine it with a baby interacting first and then developing speech. It's not being born and talking 1 month later. It takes a
Time.
year. Takes time.
Yeah.
Takes a year and all. And these kids develop exactly the same if they're young.
Okay.
But it starts later, and that's why I said it earlier. That's why the development starts.
Yep.
But not faster than we. So once you implant, it starts.
Okay.
And so that takes about a year.
For children.
For kids,
Okay.
yes.
To start
And
the
in adults,
talking
it very much
process.
depends on what they did earlier. If they have worn hearing aids for lots of years and then became completely deaf, it gets picked up really quickly.
Okay.
But it depends also on your environment. That's why your environment we just talked about is so important.
Yep.
People are really communicating all day verbally, and a lot of deaf people or adults who are gradually becoming deaf are becoming more and more isolated due to the deafness, and they don't communicate anymore because they can't say anything back, and then they need to get out of this isolation. That's one of the nicest effects a cochlear implant can have, but it works both ways.
Yes. People have to be willing to go visit, continue to socialize, continue talking to them.
Yes.
So
And the adaptation, I don't think that we mentioned that right now, but if you receive a cochlear implant, then after the outside, the external part needs to be connected to the implant, and that happens like 4 to 6 weeks after the child or the adult is operated, is implanted. And then after 6 weeks, you will start what we call fittings. And what happens with a fitting, you just connect the outside to the inside, and then it's not so that you put the volume up
Yeah, oh
I'm
my
not
gosh.
talking in technical language because
Yes.
that's not part of my job. But if you put too much, how do you say that, Steve? If you put too much, maybe you can elaborate.
Well, Robert already said it.
Yeah.
It gives an electronical signal to the inner part, and that electronic signal works in the cochlea. But you cannot start with a high signal because it's going to be painful. So we start very low, and we let your nerve, your hearing nerve, how you say that, get accustomed to the impulses. And once they get accustomed, it takes some time, and then at a certain level, you really start learning. But you wanted to have an example. If I give you a piano, you're not going to play piano.
No, definitely not.
It takes some
no.
exercises.
I have tiny fingers.
It takes some exercises.
It will definitely take me very much extra exercises, but yes.
But
yes.
our experience is that if you have in the case of a child, if you have a parent that is really determined to let the child get used to wearing a device, because you have wearing a device, it's new, then I think that within a couple of weeks you can have a child wearing the cochlear implant every waking hour. So that is our goal. Every waking hour, it needs to be wore. Okay, if the child doesn't want to, or she's going to sleep or anything, okay, then you can take it off. But for speech development, it's really important, to be accustomed to this device. And adults, I think in general, they're accustomed very fast because a lot of them, they're really anticipating to get it.
Yes, I was going to say, because they really want it. Yes,
What sometimes it's very nice to see is that in the beginning, you put the hearing aid at the child of the cochlear, and he wants to take it off and throw it away. And once they get used to it, they don't want to take it away. Even if they go to sleep, they want to stay, because once they take it at night off, they don't hear anymore.
I was gonna, and that was gonna be my question, and I think it's important for people to understand this as well. The moment that they take off, like the outside part, because the inside part stays there, but the outside part, right? Does it have a name, like the inside and outside?
The processor. Oh,
okay. Sorry.
This is implant,
Okay.
and this is processor.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
So it's quite easy.
Yes. So once they take off the processor, so they can't hear, right?
They're deaf again.
Yes. Yeah. And I think this is very important, right? Circling back to the question about you will still be deaf the moment you take it off. And this is also...
You will always remain a deaf person.
Yes.
You're not a hearing person. You can hear with your cochlear implant. So, okay, in that sense, you are a hearing person. But you're a deaf person.
Yes.
And you should
deaf person first. And
you should embrace that part. You can
just
say
imagine
proudly.
if the battery runs out.
I was going to say that.
Yes.
Or it breaks.
Or when you lose it, when you go, because nowadays I was talking about gadgets. You have these gadgets that you can go swim and in the ocean and everything. And
can you go swimming with it?
With the cover, with the
Okay.
cover, you can.
Sorry.
But we had people like losing theirs, children losing theirs, and then they will need to adjust just for a while, because they can have like a spare one at Steve's office, but they will have to learn to live with the fact that they're deaf, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's who you are,
and that's very important.
Yes.
And I think that's also where we have to put in effort, right? Talking to the families, talking to other children, to people in general, that this is a reality, and it's not like, oh my gosh, doom, right? The worst thing that could happen. No, it's just a part of who they are, a significant part of who these persons are.
Yes.
And if in any way we can...
And it's part of your identity. It's your
Exactly.
identity as a deaf person with a cochlear implant. And if even, like I said before, even if you're deaf, and because there's a lot of like the deaf culture that is very much established elsewhere. Here in Aruba, you have a deaf community as well, and they're proud. They don't need a cochlear implant. They're happy the way they are, and they should be.
Yeah.
So a cochlear implant is nothing more than a device that helps you with certain things, and it's a great device, and we all love it. But if you choose to have it or not, people should be included in society.
Exactly.
And we as a society should bring into it our effort to make it happen.
I agree 100%. Okay, so here a question for the doctors. Have you had experience here in Aruba of patients or patients' parents who rejected the implant? Oh, okay. So like saying that they had it implanted and then they didn't like how it felt or how it sounded, and then they wanted it out. Have you had this?
We had, I think, with the children, we had one child,
Okay.
and he didn't want to have the implants. So we implanted him, but once we put the processor, he doesn't want to have the processor.
Okay.
But of course, you have to get accustomed, and the parents were not really accustoming them to the implant. And it reached until a period when there was so many delay that it was very difficult to get him going.
Okay.
But he is now back. I think they took him to Holland. He's in the Netherlands for a special, how you say it, schooling. Schooling what they can do there. And then we have one adult, I think.
One adult.
Yeah, one adult. And she's also not getting so accustomed to she's getting headaches and she feels that. But the person it is more psychological.
Yeah, I'm sure it can be. I'm sure it can be. And I also think that, you may have children, and we learned that in our conversation with Rodney, where there's a lot of people who have a cochlear implant, but then they don't feel the need to use it like 24/7. They're okay with taking breaks from it.
Yes.
So I think that if we can get to that happy medium,
Yes.
where, this aid is provided to you, but then it's up to you, how you decide to.
Which will happen eventually.
Yes.
Because children,
Yes.
a child, in the first place, they cannot really decide for themselves. It's like the parents, because they're still so young. But once you get older, I think that it's up to you to, and even so, if you want to wear it and after a long day you come at home and you want to just, rest, then you're in your right to do so.
But then again, 40 people, 1 or 2.
Yeah. No, I mean,
That's
it's a
real
good
good
result here in
result.
Aruba. So,
Yeah.
and again, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if somebody doesn't want to use it afterwards. I think it's a choice. And I think that we should be prepared for that choice and make sure that we have spaces that are safe for people who make these choices. So, stuff like sign language, we should really, make it more okay for children or people, even if after you've had your implant, it's another language So I think that there's no reason for you to discard it and just ignore that part of your life. It's a skill you acquired and you should be proud of it. And if you can continue to use it to communicate with a group that cannot communicate with you verbally, right? Why wouldn't you want to use it? So yes, definitely. So just FYI, my husband is my number one fan, but he is also in healthcare. He's a medical coder at the Hospital of Aruba, so he's very interested in things like procedures. So he's asking if you can shortly explain the procedure. Although he has read it many times, I know you have.
Oh, it's not a big surgery. It's microsurgery.
Ah,
so
nice.
The ear is very small on the inside. So under the surgical microscope, we do a rather simple operation. The first part of the operation is getting access for the implant to the cochlea, to this little part that really translates the sound. So the access part, and there's a little bit on top of the skull where the implant is really recessed so that it can't move around under the skin. And then in the end, there's a very little tiny hole in the cochlea is made via a natural opening, which is there, and then slowly the electrode is inserted. It's very important because that's the most delicate part of the procedure, since we don't want to damage the cochlea inside the cochlea. So if there's residual hearing and the nerve endings, we try to preserve them as much as we possibly can. And that also determines a bit the outcome. So that's the really, the whole surgery, of course, is careful, but that's the real careful
Part, of connecting like the little
procedure
end.
will last about 1.5 hours all in. So there's a very small scar just behind the ear, and that really heals quite quickly. So complications are extremely rare.
Okay.
Yeah, and with children, if I understood correctly, they get both cochlear implants on the same day.
Awesome.
It's one after the other.
Yes.
So that's one procedure, like 1.5 hour, and then another procedure on top of that. So that's total 3 hours.
So that's what one implant takes, about 1.5 hours. That's the okay.
That's the average time. Some cases are a little more difficult. Some are somewhat easier.
Okay.
But
That's the
in general,
average.
that's
Okay.
the average. Yes.
But it's good that if they're gonna get both, they get on the same day because then the recovery is obviously.
Yes. Otherwise, you have two general anesthesias, and usually it's possible to do it in one go.
Awesome. Okay, so before we go into like the end, so we're all sitting here because this week, right, you guys are going to be working really hard at implants. So can you tell us about this week? When did you start today with surgeries?
No, the
No?
surgeries
Okay.
is tomorrow. Today is preparation.
Okay.
So we did some preparation. We had also some courses going on, new things that are happening. And tomorrow will be the first session.
Awesome.
So we have 2 patients where we're going to be operated. And then Thursday we have 1 patient, and he's going to be operated. He's from Curaçao.
Awesome.
So he came today in. We also had to get to know him, etc. And so he's being operated on Thursday.
All
So
right.
Wednesday, I'm going to the school with the representative of the company that we work with
Okay.
to give an additional explanation to the teams that are working with these children.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Friday we will be doing some technical parts. Normally we do all the aftercare and we say afregelingen of the processor
okay.
that communicates with the inner parts. But sometimes you have some problems, so we have selected 3 patients which we want to with the technical person from Medel, where we wanted to see if he could be helping us to do it more better for the patient.
Awesome.
We have some complaints, so we say, okay, well, we'll see
Let's
if we can try
fix
to
it.
have it better.
Okay. Well, oh wait, there's more questions. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what advice would you give someone who has developed hearing problems and does not want to see a specialist because it's stigmatized? Mom, is that you? No, I'm just kidding.
What advice? Well, in any case, with Gele Kruis, if a child is born, let's say, with Gele Kruis determines it in the first week. And they see practically every newborn in Aruba.
Yeah.
So,
Very good program, yeah.
we have these children but I would say,
Especially for like older, right?
the older children, well,
Or older people. I think it's more like
the
yeah.
older people.
Yeah.
Okay, the older people. Because I've read somewhere that it takes usually 7 years before someone seeks help for a receding hearing problem. So
I've asked this question to a lot of people, adult people getting this implant, and the question was, if you look back, how do you and where you're now and where you used to be, what do you think about how you did this? And almost everybody will answer, I've sunk too deep. And when looking back, I should have gone
To a
over the
specialist.
threshold
Yeah.
to a specialist just for a talk.
Yeah.
But looking back, I've really denied myself a lot of pleasure because
Of course, good
interacting-
conversations.
and
Yep.
hearing aids as well. So
Yeah.
that's the quality of life that Robert was talking about. Like it's the quality of life. It's like you want to go dancing, you want to go to the theater, you want to go see a movie, you want to have conversations with people. And I think that, just like Robert was telling, go to a professional and talk and let your hearing be checked. And then afterwards you can decide what's best for you.
Yes. And while you guys had an event, I went to it. The one, right, for I think it was like Hearing Loss Day or something
It's
like that.
like from Quota
Yes.
International, the Shatter Silence Week, where that's always a big success. And
Yes.
that is really a great week that Quota is organizing every year. And you have so much people because it's a screening. It's not really a big, you're going with a referral or anything. So it's a screening, and based on the screening, 15 to 20 minutes, you did it, right?
Yes.
Then you know what how your hearing is functioning. So I think that is lowering the threshold for
Of
people
course.
to go do it.
So these activities are
Yes.
great. So if you have somebody who you love, right, in your family or somebody you know who's maybe a little bit afraid, just plan in like a fun day during this week and tell them you'll go with them. Yes. Don't mention their hearing. Just, be like, oh, there's this thing, we should go. And then maybe hopefully they'll see that it's not as scary, right?
No,
and
it's not.
I think after seeing it on paper, it makes people realize quicker than, okay, so there is something going on here.
And it's not the devices that we had 10 years ago. Nowadays, they're so sophisticated.
Sometimes people, they come to my office.
I was going to, of course. They probably think that there's something
we did
like
a hearing
bad.
test, and I said, okay, you need a hearing aid. They said, no, I don't need a hearing aid. I said, well, according to the test, we think you do need one. But then they say, no, I don't need one. I said, okay, well, what you have to do is ask your friends around you.
Oh my gosh.
Because sometimes they think they don't need it, but what do the friends do? They stop communicating with you. So don't wait too long until you lose all your friends and all your communication, especially if you're older with your kleinkinderen, how you say that? Nietas.
Your grandchildren.
Yeah, because they talk to granddaddy and the granddaddy is not responding, and then they say, okay, well, maybe he doesn't like me.
Well, I have this thing. I'm not allowed to say who, but I have to repeat a lot, right? And I'm like, yes, she did go.
Okay, I'm glad to hear.
But we have to repeat a lot, and then it's like, and then
usually
I'm like,
it's the television that's a little bit harder than the rest of,
it's
or the radio needs to be harder for someone to enjoy. We care all about it.
And then after a while, we repeat, and then I'm like, never mind, it's not even that important. It's like, but then I'm like, no, I want to have this conversation. So I understand, and just
important message.
Check
out.
Just go and try to find a way of making it like more accessible. So something like the week, right? The shattered
and talk about it. It can happen to every one of us.
Exactly, and especially with age, I think it should be more accepted.
Yes,
because it's part of not with everyone, but it's
a natural aging
process.
process.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you shouldn't be. It's aging. Right, with grace. You should be happy you got to that age. Even if you need aids, whatever aids you may need, you should be happy you got to that age.
Which nowadays is basically, it is becoming more like an iPhone, or, you can do so much. It can even check your heart rate, and it can send others notifications when you fall. So there's all these amazing gadgets nowadays with hearing aids.
Sounds like an interesting conversation.
It's not only aging in Aruba. It can also be
Carnaval.
Damage.
That's a very important one.
Damage on the work. A lot of people they don't work and they use any protection, and also genetics.
Yep.
People getting deaf at an early age.
Okay.
Because it's in their family.
Okay. So keep these things in mind. So if you work in an environment that has a lot of noise, be more aware. If you love bands and music, be aware that you're at a higher risk.
Yes. Earplugs and distance.
Yes, but Crystal.
I know. But
I do wear earplugs and I do keep distance, so I do listen. But I have seen people not do that. So and I know it's very hard to ask people to do that. So, but yes. Thank you so much for this conversation. I think it was a really great one. I do think that we should have more conversations on these type of topics. Maybe when it's an awareness month or something, but really talk that it's very important for the community also to be grateful for this program we have, even though if it doesn't affect you directly or indirectly, right? You don't have to have a family member to appreciate something. So I hope that today you got to appreciate this program that we have in Aruba. If you're not the 1 in 1,000, great. If you happen to be, that's also great. If you have someone in your family, as long as you treat them right, compliment someone, I would really encourage you to do that. Is there anything else that any of you want to say before we leave?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, really.
And, everybody is welcome to get their ear checked and see what are the possibilities. So
awesome.
Make use of it.
Thank you for your time and for being open and talking about this. I wish you all kinds of success this week, right? With all these surgeries. Hopefully they all come out well and everybody's happy with the result. I'm sure that either they themselves or their families are very excited for it. So if you are listening, if you're getting, right, not you, because then you can't be listening, Carolina. If you're a family member of, and you are listening. But we have subtitles today. We have captions, so you could be reading. But anyways, I wish you lots of success, lots of patience, and make sure that you do the work that is required for it to be a big success. So you heard that today. And stay in touch, right? With your specialist. Stay in touch. You have a question, ask. Right?
Ask.
Alright.
And not only Riba vraag en aanbod.
Please. Okay. Facebook is a social platform. It's not an expert platform.
No,
Okay.
no.
There are experts out there, but that's not what it should be used for. Please, please. Especially in Aruba, we have social healthcare, so it's not even like
Yes.
It's like we don't even have to do that.
You have access.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much. Thank you to my sponsors. Thank you for making these types of conversations possible. I appreciate it. I love talking about things that we don't really talk about. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to Paper Sisters, especially because we have fun giveaways, and to Aveeno as well for the giveaways, to Lindy as well, but also to the other ones, Proframe, Gelatissimo, and always. And I will see you next week, and hopefully we can talk about some more interesting stuff. Bye. Hi, welcome to Sincerely Carolina. Thank you so much for tuning in. Are you excited? Are you ready to get motivated, educated, and hopefully have some changes in your daily life? Well, you are at the right place. I am Carolina. I will be your host of this podcast. And this podcast is available thanks to our amazing sponsors.
Lindy Boutique, Proframe, always Gelatissimo, Paper Sisters, and Aveeno.
Thank you so much.